to A Well-Designed Business. My name is LuAnn, and I'm so glad you found this podcast. Together with my husband Vince and our partner Bill, we have grown our company WindowWorks from the ground up. So I know and I understand the challenges you face in running your interior design business. I also know that your talent alone isn't enough to ensure your success. So on this podcast, we talk about strategies and practical steps to help you grow your business. But make no mistake about it, we have our share of fun here too, mixed in with those aha moments that I love so much. This isn't fluff. Nobody has time for that. Whether you are a new interior designer or a seasoned designer, I am here to help you create and to manage the kind of interior design firm that you dream of. It's straight talk and it's action. Are you ready? Let's get started. Hi, welcome to A Well-Designed Business. It's Power Talk Friday. Before I tell you about today's guest, I want to remind you that my next live Power Talk Friday event will be Friday, April 24th, 2020 in High Point, North Carolina. If you are interested in attending this all-day business game-changing event, please get on the email list for notifications. Go to powertalkfriday.com. Okay. So far, I'm 100% sure that Sandra Funk, the CEO of House of Funk, will be one of my Power Talk Friday guests. And as I finalize the others, if you're on the email list, you'll be the first to know who the other experts are that I will be bringing with me to High Point. And there is no question, no matter who I invite, this day is one of the best things that you can do so that you can get real answers to the questions that you have about your specific business. All right. Now, a big thanks to Article.com for sponsoring the podcast. You know you can open your trade account by going to welldesign.article.com. Have you already opened your account? And if yes, have you placed an order yet for some of their fantastic mid-century Scandinavian-inspired designs in a recent project? I hope so. Please go to welldesign.article.com. Okay, so today, Power Talk Friday, Nikki Rausch joins me. Nikki is a lady after my own heart. She is a seasoned sales guru with decades of sales success behind her. And just like me, Nikki has a passion for the art of selling. She is the founder and CEO of Sales Maven, an organization dedicated to authentic selling. Nikki has unique ability to transform the misunderstood process of selling into techniques, tools, and tips that can successfully be incorporated into a duplicatable process, which is exactly what I love. Nikki has more than 24 years of experience selling to such prestigious organizations as the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Hewlett-Packard, and NASA. And now she shares with her clients the same approach that led to her shattering sales records in her industry and receiving multiple top producer awards along the way. Her Sales Maven Society ignites the game-changing outcomes for clients, many of whom have also reaped the benefits of her immersive VIP consultations. She has her books, which are available on Amazon, and they include Buying Signals, How to Spot the Green Light and Increase Your Sales, and 6-word lessons on influencing with grace. And these are excellent resources and go along with her new book that we'll talk about later in the show. So I am really looking forward to sharing this conversation with you. Let me introduce you to Nikki Rausch. Hi, Nikki. Thanks so much for joining me on A Well-Designed Business today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Well, Nikki, it's not possible for you to be happier than me. I'm just going to tell you right now. Everybody that knows me knows how much I love talking about sales, and to be here with the Sales Maven is just a little bit of a happy dance for me.
Well, I do know that you like to talk about sales, and that makes my heart so happy.
Yes. I mean, we share. It's so funny because I've read all of your website and so many of the things. I was like, yes, that's so true. I agree. I mean, it's the language, right? It's the words that we use. It's not just formulas. It's not just, buying signals. It's all of that. It is all of that.
It's all of it.
Right. But then ultimately, if you don't hone in to the person that you're talking with and really start to feel what their pain points are, what their problems are, and figure out how to solve it for them directly, all the sales techniques in the world are going to fall flat, right?
That's right.
I know. I love it.
I love the language piece. And I always say, put the relationship first. Like,
Right.
It's really about creating strong relationships with people. And then all the other stuff flows. It gets easier.
Right, right. You know, it's so funny because we liken sales a lot to dating, right? It's very common metaphor to say, oh, you know, you don't ask for the wedding on the first date. Well, you don't ask for the sale on the first date, you know, right? It's the same thing. But I think that, you know, it's funny because I think sometimes we hear something so often that we forget the actual power of the sentence. And when you really recognize that, as excited as you might be when you're on a first date with somebody, you know, it's that 1 in a million situation where you would look at that person and go, we're going to get married. I'm excited, right? Like, I know it has happened, okay? But it's so rare. But instead, you would be, when you picture yourself with that, oh, I think this person is really amazing, and this is crazy because I've just met them, but I can see a future. That's insanity. But you sit back and you continue to learn about that person and really figure out what makes that person happy because you're so excited about the possibility of where it could go, right? And if we take that to our sales, we take that exact thing as opposed to, hi, you're somebody I can sell something to. It's like, hi, you're somebody I might be in a business client relationship with for 30 years. Let me take a moment to understand everything about you, understand all the things you need. Isn't it the same?
I think it is. I think it's, yeah, I love that you put that analogy out there. It really is about like get to know people and really connect with people. And it doesn't have to take multiple dates. It doesn't have to take years either, but it does require some effort and some time and being strategic in how you do it. Because I don't want you spending like all the time just building relationships, but never broaching the sales conversation either.
Right. Absolutely. Right. There is that. But the thing is, there are skills, there are techniques, there are things, but it starts with the genuine desire to actually solve their problem. And just like you're when you're dating, the genuine desires to actually create a relationship, same thing, right? So, okay. I love it. I love it that we like start on the same page with it. So one of the things that I thought would be, there's like a billion things on your website that I want to talk about, but I'm going to go right to this one because I think it speaks so much to my designers. Nikki, one of the things that has been a little bit of a surprise for me in this journey of almost 500 interviews, probably 500 by the time this airs, is to learn how many interior designers will classify themselves as an introvert. Okay. And I'll tell you why it surprised me, because for me, before I got to know so many on such a great intimate level, I always, you know, my Window Works business has been a conjunction business to the interior design industry for almost 4 decades now. And so I always looked at it like, that's a design business. That requires a salesmanship. That requires a salesperson. That's probably, you know, never that exact line of questioning, but I just always think of it as sales, and therefore more salespeople are extroverts, yada, yada, yada. And my learning journey has been how many interior designers actually are introverted. And so therefore, not only have not been taught or think of themselves as salespeople, but it's hard to develop sales skills as an introvert. And you actually speak to that and talk to that and coach on that. So I thought, let's take some time and pull that apart, the different nuances that you see as challenges for introverts as salespeople and how you help them overcome it.
Okay, I love this too, because I classify myself, and according to Myers-Briggs that I've done too, I do fall to the introverted side. And when I started out in my professional career, one of my really big turning point jobs was working for a manufacturer, and I came into a position where the person who had the job before me ended up being promoted to the sales manager. And he is this huge personality, like big, huge extrovert, and his clients loved him. And so here I come stepping into his shoes, taking over his territory, and being this introvert and really feeling like, how could I possibly be successful? They're used to hit this huge personality. I am not a huge personality. They were used to, he's just, he's always the loudest voice in the room. He's always making the biggest, production, all of that stuff. And he's a really good sales guy, and he's a really good guy just in general. Right. So, but one of the things that I started to figure out was like, I can't be like him. I need to figure out how to effectively do this position and be of service to these accounts and use my own personality to grow my business. And so that's when I started really kind of starting to look at this introverted versus extroverted. And the thing that I think and that I teach now with clients is that we have to find the things that make you and emphasize the really good things. And then the piece where I come in and spend a lot of time with clients is around language, because it's not that the introverts can't sell. Oftentimes it's that they're not quite sure what to say or how to say it. And when I can start to help craft some of that with them, like, okay, so when you're in a situation like this, here's what's going on around you, and here's some language. And if you can, and we tweak it until they can get it out of their mouth, till it feels comfortable and authentic. But really what I teach is like, it's not your job to learn how to sell like somebody else. It's your job to figure out how do you show up in a room? How can you start to add some flexibility to what you do and really attract the ideal clients to you? So that the people that are coming to you, they appreciate these things about you. Like, it turned out that I was even more successful than him in this position and grew that, that part of the company tremendously. I was ended up being their top producer in North America. And I did it all based on building relationships and getting, like, kind of what you started with, like getting to know people and investing in them and investing in the relationship. And then using the strategies to be effective and, strategically move people through the selling process. So I'm not sure if I answered your question.
You absolutely did.
Okay.
No, you absolutely did. Because what I love is, you see, we know this, right? We know that sometimes an introvert will just hang the hat on, I'm introverted, I can't sell. And to your point, you can sell. You just have to sell it in your way. It's everything we do. I don't care if it's running your Instagram account or if it's running your interior design business or it's learning to sell. You have to do it in a way that is truly you. And so I think what happens is that even like my initial assumption, it's okay, extroverts probably don't have a problem with it. Maybe introverts do. Let's help them. I mean, it's that sort of broad assumption. I'm introverted, so therefore I'm not as good a salesperson, because we have it in our mind, that big, bold, bodacious, outgoing, extroverted salesperson, which, some of us are that person. You know what I'm saying? But that is not the only way to do it. There is the only way to do it with success is to do it the way you teach it, which is to do it which is your voice. And I love that. And that's the thing, that because I do firmly believe that if you are self-employed, you better face the music that you're a salesperson. And so, right? Am I right?
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree with that. It's such a hard thing to come to terms with, but anytime I hear somebody say like, I don't want to sell, I just want to educate people. I don't want to sell, I just want to help people. Like, I always know, like, oh, you're an ideal client for me, because I'm going to help you start to see that this educating people and this helping people isn't really what people want. They want you to be the expert. They want you to come in and make recommendations. They want you to show up from a place of credibility. And you can do all of that and be yourself. But if you're just focused on helping and educating, then maybe, you shouldn't be an entrepreneur, frankly,
Right.
if you're so committed to it. But if you're willing to add some flexibility, if you're willing to stretch outside yourself a little bit and go, okay, maybe I could learn how to be more strategic. Okay, I've learned other things in the past. I could learn this too. I truly believe that everybody can learn how to sell effectively, but it doesn't mean you have to sell like me or you have to sell like you, LuAnn. It doesn't mean you have to sell like anybody else. You just have to show up and be yourself and understand the conversation and what's going on and how to invite and move people through the steps.
I love it. And it's so funny because I just had a conversation this morning with one of the sales reps that works for me at Window Works, and expressing just what you said. People want you to show up and be the expert. There was a conversation this morning about the prospective client asking the opinion, was it okay to have one particular type of window treatment in the entry foyer and a different type of window treatment in the living room, even though you can see the windows from the same view, right? And what's so interesting is, to your exact point, I explained in the coaching session with him, I said, listen, I need to see the picture, first of all, to give an actual answer. Because in some cases, there's a right or a wrong. Okay, let's be serious, right?
Yeah.
But once I saw it, I was like, I can make a case for either from a design standpoint. I said, but the question is, and the point is, I should say, is that when you make your recommendation, you must say why. Because he goes, well, I said to her, well, this is your home. I mean, it's really up to you. I'm not the one who's going to live here. I'm like, ixnay on that. I said, nope. I said, that is true, but and it's so funny, Nikki, I didn't know an hour later, you're going to say people wanted you to show up and be the expert, right? It's like, yes, to your point, to just educate the client in that moment as well. Some people could put two different window treatments, and some people would put the same, and some people would decide this, and some people would decide that. But I know that is what someone calls an interior designer for, a window treatment expert for. They call for the expert opinion. And so I said, in this case, we're going to describe that it is perfectly fine to have that type of window treatment in these two spaces, because these are entry spaces. These are secondary spaces. The window in the living room is our feature window. It's our focal window, and we want to put emphasis there. And the other window treatment complements it, right? I said, you must give the reason. She's looking to you for the why. And that is so important, because that is, you tell me if you agree, but I find a lot of times that when we are in the selling situation, to your point, if we're just giving all the possibilities, that's not helpful. I want you to put a stake in the ground and tell me your expert opinion. And that's part of the sales process in doing that, right? Because it instills that authority.
Yes.
Confidence. It instills confidence.
Yes. And they want to know, I don't want to give my money to somebody who's like, well, you could do this or that, no thanks. Right. I could have come up with that answer on my own. Right. I'm hiring a professional for a reason. So do show up from that place of credibility. I also say, this is, we'll see what you think about this, but anytime somebody says, how much do you charge for that? And somebody's response is, it depends. That is not an answer to that question. And I know, even probably your audience listening is probably like, yeah, but Nikki, it does depend. Okay. But that's not an answer to that question. You don't get to say it depends. It sounds like, well, I don't know my prices, but you do know your prices. Give a range, do something, right. Give them a real answer. Right. And so same, to me, it's the same thing of when somebody asks your expert opinion about something, be willing to give it.
Right. Right. And the thing is that we all have the point in the journey in our career where we're not sure. Okay. But I would counter that if you've already hung your shingle out as an interior designer, there's probably 8 out of 10 times where you're pretty sure of the answer, right? And you know more than the person across the room that you're talking to. And
So
of
much
course,
more.
right? And so the point is to have the confidence, lean into it, just express like I did. The reason why was so funny was because I said to him, I said, listen, I could make the case the other way. If we wanted to have, it was a duet shade on one window and a silhouette in the living room. I said, listen, here we go the other way. Well, I said, if you felt that she was really, had the budget for it, blah, 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 I'd be like, the other answer is, well, I think it really should be the same window treatment. Start the continuity right at the front door. Have the eyes start to move around the room and all look the same way. And then this way, the window treatments all are, in the background, and your furnishings and everything goes in the foreground because we're not switching gears on different window treatments. I mean, I could sell you the Brooklyn Bridge. I mean, I'm telling you, you know what I'm saying? But it's like, what is really the thing that was best for the person, right? Mm-hmm. And so that thing. And so don't be afraid to, like your point, Nikki, to stake it and say it. And then the only caveat we both have to say, because, it's like that little disclaimer on like the car commercials. If you don't know the answer, don't pretend. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know if that wall can be moved. Let me find out for my contractor. Right?
Yeah, never say anything that you like. It's totally okay to say, I'd like to take some time to review that or research that, or like, it's absolutely okay to say that. Right. But at some point you do need to come back and be the expert and make a recommendation. Absolutely. And like you said, and give the reason for the recommendation. Now, the client ultimately gets to decide. Mm-hmm. They may go, okay, I hear your reason and I want to do this other thing. Mm-hmm. And then, okay, right? Like, okay, that's your choice. Right. But they do, I mean, if they could do this on their own and if they had that confidence in themselves, why would they be calling you? Exactly. Why would they have you there? They want an expert and they want to pay for an expert. So make sure you show up as one.
Exactly. 100% agree. And then the one other thing about the language component of it that continue in this example, and I also shared with my sales rep was, I said, and the other reason that you want to share the reason why you believe it's a good reason and a good decision is because it may uncover something for her, the client, that she doesn't agree with. So if you just say, yes, I think it's a good idea, okay, but if you said, like in my example, I think this is a great idea because it leaves the window, it puts the window in the living room as a feature window and it, creates a secondary feeling of the stairway window and the entry window. Well, what if you say all that? And that's all true and it's fine, but that gives her the opportunity to say, oh, I don't want the window in the living room to be a feature window. Like, I want them to all feel the same. Right. And so now we're not down the road where we just made our opinion. And then, 3 months later, we've installed thousands of dollars of window treatment. She's like, I don't like the way it makes it feel the other windows are separate from the living room. It's like, whoa, like, that's exactly why we did it. Right. So that's where the language comes in, is you are expressing your expert opinion on it, but you're also in the sales process always looking for opportunity to make sure that you're both speaking the same language and having a communication that's clear, right?
Yeah. And I will say, I just did this with my group yesterday in a group call. I was explaining to them, like, it's when you're not sure about something, ask questions. Like, it's okay to ask a client a question when you're not totally sure what prompted what prompted that question. For instance, you might say to them, can I ask what prompted this question and kind of what was the thinking behind it? Because that may give you some clues on the answer that they are looking for, right? Or because sometimes we can assume what we think somebody means when they ask us a question, but sometimes if the question is a little vague, we might need to check it out a bit.
Exactly. I agree 100% in a very kind, non-threatening way. It's perfectly fine to say, I'm not sure what you don't understand, or I'm not sure what I don't understand what you mean. Would you mind XYZ? Absolutely. We have to sell from clarity, right? Because if we don't get the clarity on their needs, we're running the wrong race, right? We're not really
Yes.
focusing on what is necessary. And to your point, if you're not sure yet, keep asking questions. And do what after you ask a question, Nikki? Stop
Zip it.
talking. Right. That's another thing, but that's more for extroverts that have a problem with that. So
there's nothing worse than somebody who asks a question and then proceeds to answer it themselves, and you're like, do I need to be here for this conversation?
I know. You're probably like me, because I'm always analyzing conversations when I'm in the situation where I'm purchasing something.
Yes.
And I hate it when I have a bad salesperson. And the second time somebody asks me a question and then starts answering it, like they do it the first time, I'm like, all right, they're excited. When they do it the second time, I'm like, all right, this is not going to work. Like, this is not.
I know. People sometimes are afraid to sell to me, like people who know me, because they're like, well, Nikki's just probably judging me the whole time. And the truth of the matter is I am evaluating, and I vote. I always say vote with your wallet. And I don't give my money to people who do a terrible job at sales. Like, I just refuse to. And at the same time, I actually really do love to be sold to by somebody who does it well and who is invested in finding out what's important to me, what's my problem or need or want, and then delivering back an expert recommendation on how I can get that met.
Absolutely. I love it too. I really do love it too. And it's so funny because I want to ask you some other tips about introverts, but that just brought to my mind, and we'll get to it. But because we're talking about when somebody's selling to us, what is one of my biggest pet peeves beyond when they ask a question and don't let me answer is when they've missed my buying signals. I'm just like, I finally want to just put a sign up and say, okay, stop talking. I have my credit card. You know what I mean? And it's usually inexperienced, younger, when you're at like Best Buy or something and they're all about trying to tell you all of their geeky knowledge. And I'm like, you had me at hello. You see that second one right there? I'm ready to go. Stop teaching me.
Yes, that the whole selling past the close thing is something that I do teach around. And I mean, you can really talk people out of buying from you if you don't know how to recognize a buying signal, and if you don't know how to recognize once there's been a close like cue given that your job is to ask for the sale and then zip it. You're not allowed to speak. Let them tell you, okay, here's my credit card, or I have another question, or whatever it is. But if you're never giving them the opportunity, you're going to miss those. And, I will say one of my biggest pet peeves in sales is when people are talking at me instead of with me. Yes. Right? Like, I don't want to be talked at.
Right.
Talk with me. Right. That means it's a conversation. Right. And a conversation means we both have an opportunity to speak and ask questions and interject. And, it's like, it should go both ways. It's not just one person going like, here, let me word vomit all over you and tell you every little thing that I know.
These are both, I think, you tell me if you agree, but I think these are both Achilles heels of extroverted salespeople, right? Ones that over talk and that will talk beyond the close. They will just not, just so interested in being heard, being the expert, being smart, being capable, that they just are missing all of these cues, right?
Yes. I think sometimes an extrovert too can be a little bit like it starts to come off like they're being pushy or aggressive with you because they're so passionate about what they're selling, that it's almost like, well, you're an idiot if you don't buy this. And you don't want anybody to feel like, well, you're an idiot, if you don't buy this. So this idea of, again, I would say take your cues from your clients, because the other thing is, if you are an extrovert and you're selling to somebody who's an introvert, that's another thing you need to pay attention to, because, not even just, well, introverts for sure. I always say, like, add flexibility to your behavior, make it easy for them to stay in conversation with you. If you're a fast talker and you're talking to somebody who's a slow talker, fast talkers sometimes interrupt and talk over and finish sentences for people who talk slow. Well, that's like the worst thing you can do when you're trying to earn somebody's business. If they need time to process and think slowly and then respond, and if you're just talking over them the whole time, chances are they're not going to give you their business because they feel like you don't respect them.
No, it's so true. And being an extrovert, I, really have spent so much of my sales career learning to shut my mouth. And the thing is that I consciously do it. I will literally, and I have long since developed mechanisms that are now second nature. But in the beginning, I would literally, when I was young, and because it is true, it isn't so much that, oh, an extrovert is just like a know-it-all. It is a lot of times coming out of our passion. It is a lot of times coming think, I think this would be so great for you, and I want to figure out every single word I can possibly figure out to make you understand how great it would be for you, right? But the thing is that when you are newer at sales, younger, more immature, whatever your thing is that you haven't developed it yet, is for me, I remember consciously saying, just look in their eyes. Just keep staring at their eyes. And you can't start talking until they stop. And I would be like, literally just intently gazing. And every once in a while, you think they're done and I'm about to jump right in. And it's and then they say something else. And I'm like, okay, I'm still, and it's, and I've literally cultivated it as an exercise where I could not start a sentence until somebody completely finished. That's very hard to do. You know what I'm saying? Especially as a crazy pants person. But when you really practice it, it then does become second nature. And it's, look, my friends are like, you don't do that because you're my friends. I'm not selling you. We're having a good time. It's we're all talking. You know what I'm saying? Right? I mean, but in that professional environment, in a sales environment, in any environment, I do know that myself and my salespeople that are extroverted, it is a consistent conversation of take a breath, back it up. This person isn't going to spit out the words as fast as you are. Give them a minute. Let them compose their thoughts. Let them get it all out. Believe me, the nuggets come when you be quiet and let them talk, right?
Yeah, it's so true. I mean, the fact of the matter is sometimes if you don't let somebody finish their thought and you jump on what you I think they're going to ask me this, so I'm just going to answer it, and they don't even need to finish the sentence. But the fact of the matter is sometimes that will derail the sale because while they're asking their question, they'll switch gears in some way. But if you never allow them that opportunity, oftentimes you'll never get back to it. And if they don't get that question out in the way that they wanted to ask it, and you don't ever answer it, they may actually never think you have the solution for them. And then they won't hire you, right? They'll go find somebody else that they get to ask and maybe now it'll be a more well-formed question because they've had time to think about it. And so you want to give people time and space. And one of my mentors was telling, because we were laughing about, because I was, saying the sales, zip it, right? Just wait. And now she says, silence is so hard, Nikki. It's really so hard for me. Once I've issued a close language to somebody, she's like, so now I count in my head. And I'm like, hey, whatever it takes for you to just be whatever, because it is muscle memory. Silence, I think, is an advanced selling skill. It's not an easy thing, especially if you like to talk. Right. It's not easy to learn to be quiet, but if you're willing to, you will increase your chances of earning somebody's business if you know how to use it strategically.
I 100% agree. And I think that it's one of those things where the more you practice it and it works for you, the easier it gets to do, because it's like a positive reinforcement. It's like systems. I'm not a systems person. I'm totally not a systems person. I've worked with my husband side by side for almost 40 years, and he drilled it into me. And the first 5 years, honestly, if somebody was out of the system, it was me. It was constantly every week, Lou, you didn't do it this way. And I'd be like, what's the big deal with that way? You know what I'm saying? Like, I would totally, like, why is that way the way? You know what I mean? You'd be like, well, all of us over here are doing it this way. You know what I'm saying? And then what happens is that there becomes this moment where the systems save your booty, right? It's like, whoa, I did it that way. And that could have been a really expensive mistake, but because I was in the system, then there was a fail safe for it and blah, blah, blah. Then it increases efficiency. Let's be serious. You're like, oh, it took me half the time when I do it the way, right? And so what happens is you actually, even though my innate nature is not to be systematized, I know that they serve me. And so now I seek them out wherever I can, and I seek to automate whatever I can. It's the same with learning to be quiet. It's the same thing. It's like, oh, the books on sales say to be quiet. Well, that's not so easy to do. Oh, but when I do it, it works. So I was much more motivated to learn sales. So I picked that up quicker than I did systems, I will say.
Well, and that's actually why I teach a 5-step process. I call it the selling staircase. But and I just had this conversation with a client the other day. I'd done this training for an organization, and we were doing a follow-up call. And one of the ladies, she was like, okay, I followed your 5-step process, Nikki. I've had 5 sales calls since we last, went through the training with you. And 3 of them, I used your process, and 2, I went back to my old way of doing it. She's like, I closed the 3 that I used your process, and the 2 that I didn't close. Wow. And she was like, so it's so much easier, because I love a process and I love a structure. And I think when you can give people structure of like, here's the steps. Now, do you have to follow them every single time? You get to choose. But if you at least have some kind of a process, if you have some type of a structure, now things get easier. And not only do they get easier for you, but they get so much easier for your client, because then they're like, it's seamless. Now it's like, oh, okay, we're moving down this path. For me, we're moving up the staircase, right? And so I love a process or a structure. I think it makes it easier for people.
It absolutely does. And I know that your most recent book is The Selling Staircase. So that takes people through this 5-step process. So my question, Nikki, is it something that you could share as an overview here, or is it too oh, okay, good. Because I didn't know if it's LuAnn, read the book.
No, I'm happy to share it.
Oh, good. So let's walk through it a little bit.
Okay. And so I first want to say, if it's okay, that, a lot of times you hear people talk about sales like it's a funnel, like fill your sales funnel. And I get this because I come from the corporate sales background, and I believe in filling a sales funnel, but I think a lot of what is filling a sales funnel is marketing. And where people start to fall down is they're like, okay, so I have this lead, but what do I do with it? And that's where I say, okay, now we're on the selling staircase, and it's your job to move your clients through the steps to get to the place where you actually issue the closed language so you can exchange money for product or service, whatever it is that you're selling. So the 5 steps are in the process. The first is introduction, and introduction meaning that they're being introduced to you for the first time, or maybe you're meeting them out and about somewhere. You're at a networking event, or you're at an industry event, and you're meeting a prospective client for the first time. So you want to, in the introduction phase, and there are things that I teach in each of these steps, so I'm just going to give you like the overview. But the first thing you want to do is make sure you're establishing yourself as a credible source and make a powerful first impression. One way to do that, like this is so simple. Your audience might laugh at me for even sharing this, but I'm so shocked at how often when you meet somebody for the first time, they never say their name. So make sure that when you're meeting people, you introduce yourself. You say your name. You say, hi, I'm Nikki Rausch, or, whatever your name is. Like that starts to establish you as credible. Because to me, it drives me nuts when I'm out and about and I'm meeting people and they're like, oh, hi, it's nice to meet you. Yeah. And then you're like, well, what's your name?
Who are you?
Like,
right. I know.
Yeah. Like, so the introduction phase is first. And then step 2 is creating curiosity. And curiosity, step 2, your job there is to check to see, is this a potential client or colleague, or like what's going on here? So the tip that I like to give around creating curiosity is, are you are you answering questions in a way that spurs people to want to know more about you? So for instance, if somebody says, oh, hi, how are you? You could say fine or good, but that doesn't really like open the door for them to ask you anything else. So I call these here kitty kitty statements, because it's when you're creating curiosity, it's the difference between how you call a dog and how you call a cat, which I know sounds really crazy, but bear with me here for just a
very
second.
visual though. I get it.
So when you show up at events and let's say, first of all, when you want to call a dog, usually you do this thing where you get a lot of energy and you like have this high pitched voice where you're like, oh, come here, boy, come here. Right. And dogs like that and they respond to that. And when you show up at events and you have what I call dog calling energy, people do not respond. They go like, oh, too much. Because usually it's like, I'm so excited to tell you about what I do and how I can help you. And you're the ideal client for me, and people are like, oh, that's too much. So instead, think about how you call a cat. And how you call a cat is you do this little like, here, kitty, kitty, here, kitty, kitty. And cats like that, and people like that too. So this is why you want to have here, kitty, kitty responses to really simple questions like, how are you? Or what do you do? Or, so for instance, just listening to your podcast a little bit, and if I were you stepping into your shoes right now and I was showing up at an event and somebody says, oh, hey, how are you? And you might go, oh, I'm great. I am in the planning phases for my next big event coming up in November.
Right.
And that's going to allow somebody to go like, oh, what's your event? What do you do? Like, who attends that? Right. It allows you to actually start to talk about something you might be interested to see, like, is this somebody who might like to attend your event? Or maybe they don't want to attend your event, but now they're super excited that they just met somebody who can really help them with something they need some help with in their home. So have an answer that's true, that's authentic, and it needs to only be about one sentence, 3 at the max. Otherwise, you're word vomiting, and that's dog calling energy. And then what happens when you start to have these here kitty kitty responses, you start to really get to have like legitimate business conversations with people. And then what happens is they start giving you buying signals like, that's so interesting. I'm thinking about redoing my basement and I wasn't sure if I should bring in a designer. Well, now like, oh, ding, 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 buying signal. So I want to act on that. I might say, well, what do you think about us having a sit down conversation to find out more about what's important to you regarding your basement and see if this would be a fit for us? Right. That's when you now invite them to the next step, which is the discovery phase. And that's step 3 in the selling process. And the discovery, your job in the discovery is to find out what their want, their need, their problem is, and to do it all in a way that where you're asking questions that lead people to hiring you. So what I mean by that is you need to ask questions that help you determine, is this an ideal client or not? And you don't want to ask a bunch of questions that you really don't need the answers to until somebody hires you, which I find a lot of times when I work with my designer clients, when I look at their discovery questions, I'm like, do you really need to know this? And they're like, well, I do once I get the job. And I'm like, well, then that's a different discussion. Let them hire you. And then you ask that question, but don't use your discovery time to be asking questions that don't allow for you to determine, is this an ideal client or not? Like, what do you need to know in the discovery? You might need to know what their budget is. And I'm not saying, there depends on what your questions are, but so I'm not going to give you every single question to ask, but maybe you need to know what their budget is. But do you need to know like what their favorite colors are? No. You don't need to know that in a discovery process. That's something that comes in once you start the design work. Once they've agreed to hire you, then maybe there's an intake or there's something that's happening there. But I always caution people in the discovery of asking too many questions that overwhelm somebody and don't really help clarify, like, I'm the expert who can solve this problem for you. That's your job in the discovery.
Okay, so I want to stop you there for a second.
Yeah,
okay?
please.
Keep your train of thought.
Okay.
Because recently I am aware that a designer had someone because they shared the screenshot with me. They just thought it was funny and they were like, oh, dodged a bullet. And what happened was somebody was given the discovery intake and the answer came back and it said, you know what? This is taking too long to do. This might be great for housewives that have nothing to do but sit around and answer questionnaires, but not me. Thanks, I'll find somebody else. like it was literally was like that blunt, right? And the designer listening will know exactly who she was that she shared it with me. But the thing was that she felt like, great, I dodged a bullet. Somebody that doesn't want to take 10 minutes to let me figure out about their project, I don't need this person in my life. And so the thing is, because I know that designer is going to listen, I want to just clarify for us for here and something like that. There is a difference between having a 10-minute questionnaire that every question is relative to the discovery process, and a difference between what your advice is to look at your questionnaire and just be sure that this is information you need to know. And then if you're sure of it and somebody gives you an answer like that, you can be pretty sure that they're not your client, because even that approach, even an answer like that, like who says that? Maybe a housewife has time to answer a questionnaire. I mean, it's so derogatory, right? I mean, come on. It's like, to me, like that was where I was like, I was okay. I didn't come back and say, oh, maybe you should look at this or maybe you should that, because I thought anybody that was willing to a stranger in an email be that derogatory, I thought, what are they going to do in person when there's really pressure? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You know, like when the pipe breaks in the kitchen, something really happens, right? So, but to your point, Nikki, is that the discovery questions are important, and don't ditch your discovery questionnaire, but you don't just make sure, don't bog your sales process down and your potential client down in questions that are overwhelming that you don't need to know at that juncture.
Yes, that's exactly my point. And like I said, I did this not too long ago with one of my clients who is a interior designer. And when I looked at her questionnaire, we're not talking like a 10-minute questionnaire. It was like a 2-hour questionnaire. Oh. And I was like, who's going to fill this out? Like this could take and there were really there was a lot of like essay type answers that she was asking for. And I'm like, can we clarify, and can we make any of these multiple choice? Can we make any of these, like, make it quick and simple? And I'm not suggesting in any way that you don't ask questions you need the answers to. And to your point about that designer, I agree. She dodged a bullet with that type of a response. Like, who wants to work with people who are just going to be disrespectful and kind of jerky, right? Like, I don't want those clients either. So at the same time, though, take a look at your questions, making sure that you're asking questions that lead people down the path to hiring you. For instance, I ask questions in my selling strength assessment that are all about things that I teach. I don't ask questions about things I don't teach. So I ask questions like, do you know how to create curiosity when you're talking about your business? I don't ask, do you have a 30-second elevator pitch? Now, that's something I will work with clients on in a private session, but I don't need to know that in a discovery. Like, I really only want to know, and I don't ask, like, how do you track your KPIs? Like, I don't need to know that in a discovery question. No. I just want to know, like, do you know how to incorporate storytelling into your business, into your selling process? Like, do you know how to ask for a sale? Do you know how to recognize a buying signal? These are all things that I teach and do. So that's where I always say, like, take a real, take that, like, your magnifying glass and really magnify these questions and go, do I need to know this? Can I ask it in a way that is short, simple, and sweet for the client to answer? And then therefore increase our chances of, like, getting to the next step in the process.
You know what I also think, when you described that it was like a 2-hour questionnaire, I think probably what happens to us as the person being asked to, in the discovery process, whatever it is, whether we're interior designers or we're a car salesman or whatever we are, is I think intuitively, because as soon as you said, oh, I'm talking about a 2-hour questionnaire, my first knee-jerk thought was, I'm not even sure I'm hiring you yet. I'm not investing 2 hours in this. Like,
Exactly.
see, that's the reason. So, like, for me, that's what I want to make sure, because that was exactly my knee-jerk thought when you were talking. And that is why that it's important for all of us to ask questions that are pertinent, because as the receiver, we instinctively, whether we objectively are looking at this or not, we're instinctively either feeling like, oh, this is good information, I'm going to get good information back. This is good information. These are good questions, I'm going to get a good price back. These are good questions, I'm going to get good feedback back. Or we're instinctively feeling, why does somebody need to know this? Like, we're having that thought anyway. And as soon as our potential consumer is having that thought, it's one part in the breaking down of not going up the staircase that you want us to go up, right?
Exactly. Because I always say, like, clients want to be led up the selling stair, and it's your job to lead them. It's your job to invite them to each step in the process. And when you start making it difficult, when you start making it a lot of time and energy on their part to invest in even getting to the place where they're even deciding to hire you, like, it's also why I don't recommend. I hate when people send me like, Nikki, if you would just watch these 3 videos, they're 15 minutes each, and then you'll learn about our product. I'm like, no.
Not
if
happening.
You can't tell me about your product over the phone or over Zoom or in a face-to-face conversation in 15 minutes or less, what are you doing?
Right.
So it's that thing. Like, think about how much time you're asking somebody to invest to even get to this place to decide, can I move to the next step in the process, which is step 4, which is the proposal. If you don't do a well done discovery, if you don't ask questions that lead people to hire you, you don't get to move to the proposal. And if you don't get to move to the proposal, you don't get to move to the close. And that's just the way, like, people will start ghosting you. They'll disappear, that like you've asked too much of them, or you've come on too strong. I had this with one of my financial planners that I was doing some work with. When we looked at her discovery process, I was like, people haven't even decided to hire you, and you are asking them very personal information. Like, I wouldn't share that with you, even as my client, unless I had decided to hire you. So we need to get those questions out of your discovery, because
that's the truth.
People are not going to show up for these.
Right. It's on that regard, it feels too personal. I haven't decided to hire you. On the other regard, where I was, commenting on your thing was, I don't want to take the time yet. Let me decide first. But the thing is, there is a place for that. There is a point when I've given you my money, and now I want to feel like every single little thing about my project is important to you. And then I'm going to value it. I'm going to say, yes, I have given you my $50,000 for a retainer. And yes, ma'am, ask me everything. Ask me what color toilet paper holder I want. Like, you know what I'm saying? Because I want it to be right. But until I've committed to you, you're just bothering me. You're just like, stop making me do your job. That's what it also feels like, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
You cannot ask clients to jump through a bunch of hoops and expect. It's like, it's this other thing of, I always think of like a tennis analogy. It's like you lob the ball over, and if you ask them to do a bunch of stuff, they're never going to send the ball back. Like, there has to be this like super easy, fast, like, make it super simple. And the easier you make it for people to go through the process with you, the more likely they are. And then the easier it is to earn their business. So, okay, so we've gone through discovery. We've talked a little bit about it, and I could do a whole show just on discovery, because there's so many pieces around it. But, and I do, like, I have a whole training around discovery in my Sales Maven Society. So the next step is the proposal. And in the proposal, this is really that place where you stand in your credibility, and you stand there as the expert that you are, and you recommend what the client needs. Not what you think they can afford. And that's
I
a
love it.
really key point.
You're
Now,
talking
the
my
thing,
language. I say, don't save
okay.
your clients money.
Yeah, if you're like, well, I just don't think they want to spend that much. Well,
Right.
have they told you that? No.
Right.
Okay, well, in sales, the two worst things you can do, I think, as a salesperson is you can project your limiting beliefs onto a client, and then
Mm-hmm.
you can hallucinate that you can read their mind and you know what they're thinking. Like those are two sales killers in the sales process.
I'm with you. I'm laughing. I'm with you.
Okay. Okay. So now we've laid out a proposal of what is going to solve their problem, meet their need. And by the way, in order to move to from discovery to proposal, I do actually recommend asking permission, and this is also how I consider issuing an invitation. So I might say to somebody, based on reviewing your answers to the discovery questions, I do have some ideas of ways that we can work together. Is that something you're interested in learning more about?
Love it.
Because if you're not doing that, if you just jump right into like, here's what you should do, and here's how you should hire me, and here's the money it's going to cost, you don't really have their permission to propose to them. And oftentimes that can kind of break down the selling process. It can break down the rapport. So make sure you're asking permission to move to that step. And then they're ready when you have this really beautiful proposal to lay out to them. And the proposal, when I say beautiful, I don't necessarily mean that it has to be like laid out on really nice paper. And I'm not even saying it has to be on paper. It can just be a conversation and everything in between. But be willing to, again, recommend what they need that's going to solve their problem, show them how to get it, and then you issue close language, which is step 5. That's the close, where you say, now, after reviewing this, is this something you'd like to move forward with? And then you zip it again.
I love it. I love it. I love that in there, asking permission to move forward. Anybody who has coached with me one-on-one knows that we often have that conversation. It's at all different junctures. It's saying, this is the next step. Do you want to take it with me? Right?
Yes.
Because
yes.
for me, it gets agreement. And the thing is, if somebody even hesitates, or if they say, well, yeah, okay. So maybe the words are saying okay, but there's any body language or voice or tremor or hesitation, you've got to go back. You didn't answer. There's that nagging thing that they didn't get answered. Maybe they didn't have the nerve to ask you. Maybe they felt like they asked you 2 or 3 times and you skated it, right? Sometimes we just miss it, right?
Yeah.
And so, but that's, you want to find out then before you start to go through all of this closing section, because if we're not ready to close and we don't know it, we're the first person that better know it, right?
Yes. So that's such a great point. This idea of when you're paying attention, to the cues that your clients are giving, the body language, the facial expression, that hesitation in voice, any of those things, like you want to get really curious and check those things out. Because I always say in the selling staircase, you don't get to skip steps. Like you don't get to go up to somebody and be like, hey, LuAnn, I just met you. Like, do you want to buy from me? Right. That's the worst. Like, no, get away, right? Like we hate those people. And so you can't just go from introduction to close, and you can't go from, curiosity to proposal and miss this discovery piece. Now, I will say your clients can skip steps.
I was thinking
your client
that.
can come right up to you and be like, LuAnn, I've heard amazing things about you. I have $50,000. Right. I'm ready to do business with you. Then I don't want you to go like, wait a minute, let's jump back to curiosity. Like, no, then you take the money, you move through the process. That's a different conversation. So just make sure that you are following the steps, because that's how you lead a client step by step by step through the process. And then when you get to the place of a close, there shouldn't be any shock of them going like, what? No, I'm not even ready to move there yet. You shouldn't have even proposed then if that's their response. You definitely missed something.
Exactly. Because even if you use that simple example in the introduction conversation with the person saying, I might have a basement that I'm thinking about redoing. I might need some ideas for, you said, oh, that might be something I could help you with. Would you be interested in setting up a time to talk about that? Right? That is getting agreement. That is that little that trial close, that introductory type of thing, that asking for permission. Because what if they say, oh, yes, but no, because I just knocked the house down and, we're starting over from scratch and I was, whatever, that didn't make any sense. But you know what I'm saying. It's like,
I do.
The point is that it serves the whole process. It serves the potential client. It serves you to really, it's just what we always say, keep asking questions so that you know how to sell them. Right?
Yes, yes. And issuing these invitations from one step to the next allows you to know, like, are they ready to go there? Because
Right.
if you invite them to, like, should we schedule a time to chat more? And they're like, no, I'll just take your business card and I'll call you. Okay, well, that's totally fine. And there's some language you could give there, like, I would love to earn your business when you're ready. Please know I'll be happy to hear from you. But I call those like bless and release. Like,
Right.
I'm totally fine with people can come back to me at any point, but I'm not going to chase people who aren't indicating in any way that they're ready to move forward with me, because when you do that, you turn people off. They want to run away when they see you at events. Right. They look the other way, or they like avoid you like the plague.
Right. Because the thing is, in polite conversation, someone could say, oh, that's interesting. You're an interior designer. I'm remodeling my basement right now, or I'm thinking of remodeling my basement. And the fact of the matter is maybe their sister-in-law is an interior designer. And they were just like on the moment, like blurting out something that was of common interest to the two of you. Right. And so when you just say, oh, I've got great ideas for basements. I just did a man cave and I just did this and I did that. It's sort of like, okay, lady, I was just like making conversation. But if you say, like you said, that permission to take the next step, even the person who, there are people we know that won't say directly, oh, thank you, no, my sister-in-law is an interior designer. They'll just be like, well, no, like you said, no, I'll just take your card. But the point is that they don't give you the permission to pass go. So don't pass go. Just
exactly.
Let it go.
I so love the way you articulated that. That is, yes, you are. I feel like we speak the same language
totally
when it comes to that.
I've been looking at your name in my calendar for weeks thinking, yes. This is like the 9-hour show. There's so much to learn and to know about it. And the thing about it is for me, it's when somebody gets excited learning chess, right? There's one level of the game and then there's another level of the game. It also is like yoga. I don't know if you've ever practiced yoga, but the first day you do yoga doesn't look anything like the yoga class that you do a month later. And it doesn't look anything like the yoga class that you do a year later. And the crazy thing is 10 years later, you're still making improvements to your yoga practice. Like, you legitimately are always able to be like, oh, I'm just holding that pose just a little taller or a little longer. And for me, sales is that way. I have that exact passion. It's like, one more thing I just learned about it. It's like, oh, that's so exciting.
I agree. I feel like I always say I'm a lifelong learner. And when it comes to sales and relationships and the language of sales and the conversation, I love to learn new things every single day. And all of the things that I talk about, I walk my talk. This is how I sell. These are the exact same things that I test and try. And when I find something new, like my group, my coaching clients, they instantly are getting like, here's something that just happened for me. And this was the response. And this is, how you might incorporate it into your life and into your sales process. So I love that too.
It's awesome. It's awesome. And you have so many resources for us. So first of all, you have your latest book, The Selling Staircase. You also have other books, Buying Signals, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
6-word lessons on influencing with grace. I love all of these are amazing. And then you also have your Sales Maven Society. And you also have, we're going to give information out on all of these, but you also have the Selling Strength Assessment that people can take and try to just do a little quiz to see where they flesh out on some of this. Tell us about some of these things that you do to help us be better salespeople, Nikki.
Okay. Well, I have the Sales Maven Society is my group coaching program, my membership platform. It's a monthly membership. All of my trainings are housed inside the training center for people to go in and use and access them as they need them. It's all curated content. So you could go in and say, like, I want some help around creating curiosity. Well, there's a whole unit modules with a bunch of units in there around creating curiosity, or whatever the interest is. Like, I want to have my emails that convert, right? There's all these trainings in there for you. And then inside the Sales Maven Society, you also get access to me for your questions. So we have a private group where people can go in and tag me and post questions, and I answer every single question for them. And then I do live events regularly for that group where we get onto Zoom, and I do trainings, or I do live Q&As for them, or I do, mini coaching spotlight sessions. So that's what the Sales Maven Society is. And that is I love that group. It's a very robust group of professionals around the world that are from all different walks of life and sales that are really committed to learning how to, master the art of relationship selling. So that's the Sales Maven Society. I do also private coaching. And then you mentioned the books. Those are really great resources for people who need some help around sales and if you like to listen, 2 of my books are on Audible, so you can listen to them, or you can download them, or, get paperback versions, whatever you want. And then I also do a selling strength assessment. And this is really for people who are trying to figure out, like, what's working for me in sales, and what do I need some additional, what else should I be paying attention to? Where do I need some additional resources or support? And this is actually where you can get on a call live with me and do a selling strength assessment. So I walk you through the questions, and then I review your answers with you and talk you through some additional resources that might be useful, or some places for you to pay particular attention, things that are working and things that do need a little bit more attention in the selling process for you. So you tell me, is it easier if I just give out some links for people?
Yeah, definitely. Okay. I didn't realize the selling strength assessment was a conversation with you. That's very powerful.
It is a conversation. Yeah. Yeah. And even, it's an opportunity for us to also assess whether or not we want to work together. But people who do the selling strength assessments with me, even if you don't decide to work with me, people always say that I learned new things about myself in that. So I try to make it as valuable and as powerful for you as possible. So yeah, I would love to. So if somebody wants to do a selling strength assessment with me, you can just go to, I have a bit.ly link. So it's, bit.ly/salesmaven. That'll take you right to my calendar, and you can schedule a time that works best for you. And we'll jump on a quick Zoom call and go through the assessment together. I also have a free download ebook for your audience on closing the sale. So if they would like to download something where it's going to walk them through some of this language, and, really it kind of starts at the discovery, the proposal, and the close part of the selling staircase, you can download that by going to yoursalesmaven.com/WDB for a well-designed podcast, a well-designed business podcast. Right. So that's there. And then if you want to join the Sales Maven Society, I actually have a free, I have a deal for your listeners.
We love deals.
You love deals? Okay. Okay. So my membership is $97 a month, and you can come in for 1 month, test it out and see it, or you can come in and stay, and it's, it just auto renews, so you can cancel at any time. And for your listeners, they can come in. If they use your coupon code, they can get $87 a month. So it'll save you 10% off of your membership. And you just go to salesmavensociety.com, add the cart, hit buy now, and there will be a place for you to put a coupon code. And if you use the coupon code LuAnn, all lowercase, LuAnn, then you can join the Sales Maven Society. We would love to have you be in the group and start posting your questions to me right away. I love questions.
That's awesome. Oh my goodness. So many amazing resources. I think it's fantastic. And I appreciate you extending the $10 off per month to our listeners here. It's $120 a year. That's like nothing to shake a stick at. So I appreciate that very much. And I also think it's terrific that there is, an opportunity to come in, try it. And if it doesn't feel like it's a right fit or whatever, that you're not locked in. So good for you, Nikki. I just, in podcasting circles, you have such an amazing reputation, and I have been looking forward to this opportunity to speak with you for a couple of months now, and you don't disappoint. And I'm so glad and so grateful that you shared your time with us today. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
You know me. I love any time I get to talk about sales. And Nikki is one of the best in the business. Her line, did you hear it? Relationship sales. This is you. This is me. We are in a field where our potential client needs to get to know us before buying from us. So it is important to first spend time with yourself, really identifying what you are great at. And when it comes to design and what you can do as a company that you can really deliver in an excellent, truly valuable way. You see, when you know that, then you can speak to just that client in all of your social media posts, on your website, on your logo, your thank you notes. When all of these things have done the heavy lifting for you, they bring that ideal potential client right to you, okay? And at that point, you can ask questions, listen, and discover if they are facing the challenges for which you are the answer for. Make sense, right? So for example, I announced that I was doing chairman of the board, right? And I had several conversations with those of you that wanted to learn more about the chairman of the board opportunity. The thing is, before announcing this, I have spent a lot of time getting very clear on what are the aspects in business that I truly excel at. Right? So like you, I wear many hats in my business, but not all the things that I need to do or require to do in my business that I excel at, right? So my short list of skills are only the ones that I really own, the ones that I am superior at, and the ones that I love to do. And I get clarity on this before I announce the opportunity. Why? Because if you were to respond to that, I then do as Nikki suggests. I ask about you. I uncover your challenges. I get all caught up in what it is that you need, okay? This way, when I hear what you need, I already am saying to myself, yep, I can help with that. No, I can't help with that. Yes, I can help with that. And if at the bottom of that conversation, it's not a fit, then I'm not going to take you on, right? I'm not going to pretend that the challenges that you have are things that I could bring to the table. So the point is, it's like Nikki says, get clear, understand, so that when you're in the process with your client, your potential client, you're really focusing on what it is they need. And then you're able to sit back and decide and figure out if you can deliver it. Okay. And this is the thing, with Nikki's sales staircase, you can do this with confidence and intention. And that's what I love about it. Okay. So please take advantage of all the goodies that Nikki has to offer. Her books for sure, absolutely. Her Sales Maven Society, her free download, Close More Sales, and of course the opportunity to work with her one-on-one. All of the web addresses that she mentioned at the end of the show will also be in the show notes, all right? Now, if you want more conversations about sales and you're new to the podcast and you're not sure which ones you might go back and check out, I would suggest Stephanie Chung, number 277, Kwame Christian, number 129. We talked about negotiation, which is right up there in the sales, right? Madeline McRae, number 315. Okay. So, and if you, like Nikki, even half as much as I did, I know that I did my job. Awesome lady, #smart lady, and tons to teach all of us how to be proficient and comfortable with relationship sales. So I want to thank you tons for joining me today. I really do value and appreciate that you show up. There have been several recent reviews on iTunes over the last couple of days and months, and I do value and appreciate them, and I read every one. So thank you for taking the time to do that. And you know what I'm just going to tell you? I'm going to say to you, decide to do something today. Move the needle in one way. Think about something that you could do, maybe something that you could do to be a better salesperson, a better advocate for your own company, right? And what does it start with? It starts with your decision to be excellent. Thank you so much for joining me again today. This podcast is a production of WindowWorks, your resource for custom window treatments and awnings. To learn how we can help you on your next interior design project, go to www.windowworks-nj.com. And if you're interested in working with me on your business, either through masterminds or one-on-one coaching, or you want to know how to get my book, The Making of a Well-Designed Business, or you just want to know what's going on in the podcast land and where I'm going to be, all of that is found at LuAnnNigara.com. Thank you so much. Have an excellent day.